Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hi/X/. This happened to my girlfriend's roommate over the summer, and ends with me as a recluse and a shut-in. I can't stand being in the dark. Now I spend all day on the internet, trying to figure out what happened. I want to put a name to it, but all I have is Dimitri. I need to externalize it to make sense of it. I want a record of it. Girlfriend, we will call her Betty, has a roommate who bails on the lease. Girlfriend gets an old friend, we will call her Veronica, to move in, even though she can't really afford it. Veronica works at a major coffee shop chain doing the back shift. She's good at her job and deals with a lot of scummy people. We all live in a really blue-collar, industrial city. Homelessness and poverty are just kind of part of the place, so she's used to dealing with weirdos. But Veronica is the type of girl who has a habit of falling madly in love with whomever she happens to be dating, despite being most definitely an adult. My girlfriend, Betty, ignores all the boys that have come and gone and broken her heart, so she moves in after getting into a nasty breakup with her old shitty boyfriend and comes to live with Betty. About 2 weeks later, she starts talking about a guy she met at work, Dimitri. Dimitri is a patron of this place while she works nights, apparently doing maintenance on an apartment complex nearby. She says he's really sweet and from the Ukraine. We don't pay any attention. About a week after that, me and Betty come home, and there's Veronica and Dimitri hanging out. We don't feel like being sociable with this guy that probably won't be here in a month, so we don't pay much attention, but we end up getting roped into hanging out a little bit. Grown.jpg. Let me tell you about this Dimitri guy, though. First of all, he dresses weird. I don't exactly have a great sense of fashion. I feel fancy in khakis and button-up shirts. But Dimitri dressed himself like he was colorblind, clashing colors and clothes that never really seemed to fit right, and always had kind of a wet laundry smell that was barely covered up by piles of cologne. He dressed in pretty standard douche bro style, polos and weird jeans and brightly colored sneakers. His hair looked to be bleached and spiked by someone using their elbows. His skin had a weird plastic quality to it, like he was spray-tanned. But he had really nice teeth and a charming smile and, to be honest, great eyes, big and blue and wide open. Despite his inept fashion sense, I could see why a girl would pay attention to him if he was sweet. He tried to look good and had a charm about him. He looked tense, though. At the time, I passed it off as nerves, but he always looked tense now that I think about it. Always had his shoulders boxed up to look bigger, puffing up his chest, sitting on his clenched fists and bouncing his legs. But he always looked calm in the face, serene even. I don't know. It was a weird mix of physical features, but whatever. Everyone's awkward in their own way, right? Talking to the guy was even worse, though. He smiled just incessantly and was always nodding. He was always really enthusiastic about cars and beer, but would always just express how much he loved whatever it was that you mentioned at the time. He couldn't speak very well, but we all just chalked that up to him being from Ukraine, but he definitely had a stutter. Hey, dude, where is good? This is how he always started off when he first talked to you, and he always beamed with pride when he spoke this. He clearly practiced, and it was a little bit pathetic seeming at the time, and one of the few North American phrases he could say without sounding like a fresh-of-the-boat level of foreigner. We were bored and annoyed by him, and the prospects of him always being around. But, whatever. He would be gone in a month, right? A month passes, and he spends the night for the first time, and it looks like Dimitri is going to crap himself. We already know that Veronica and him are regularly active, so he's not nervous about that. He was just really uncomfortable with being here for some reason. We ordered pizza that night and sat around doing some double date whatever, and he powered through his food like a beast as fast as he could, always nodding and smiling as he ate. Pretty awful table manners too. Not even Veronica's washy standards could avoid that. I could tell by her embarrassed look that she was mortified by this guy at a dinner table. Anyway, if he wasn't nodding and tyrannosaurusing his pizza, he was always looked out the window, like fixated on it, and wanted to go to bed super early, claiming he was tired from that old grindstone. But we could hear that they stayed up most of the night, with TV volume varying wildly. So it's 3 a.m., they finally are asleep. I have to piss, and I'm down the hallway at the far opposite end from Veronica's room, which is Betty's room. I get up to use the bathroom, being quiet so as not to wake up the girlfriend. I get about halfway down the hallway and I hear that fleshy plap sound of bare feet on hardwood. But there's too many plaps. It sounds like multiple barefooted people scurrying around out there. I freak out for a second and stay perfectly still and listen and start to gradually edge my way to the end of the hall to look around the corner into the living room. It's Dimitri, butt naked, standing by the picture window, intensely licking sauce and cheese off a plate. I'm equal parts relieved, freaked out, and embarrassed because I think Veronica might also be running around naked. I just assume that they're high and eating pizza and naked from messing around. So I casually strut to the bathroom and try not to be awkward if she is around here somewhere in the nude. I assume hiding behind the couch. I'm peeing and suddenly get that skin-crawling I'm being watched sensation. I can clearly see the whole bathroom in the mirror that runs the full length of the wall. But in the mirror I notice the door. It's closed and locked, but it's bowed in. At the time I didn't really get it, but I get it now. I could see the outline of Dimitri's toes under the crack of the door, and the cheapo plastic eye wood door was being pressed in. That psycho was pressing onto the door as hard as he could. I ignore it, but I'm creeped by the toes. Think he's just trying to play some stupid prank to bro out and be normal. I open the door, expecting him to bolt to Veronica's room, which was only about 10 feet away, snorting. But he just stands there, right against the door, smiling and nodding, but his eyes look pissed. Just wide and angry, not even frowning. He bobs his head, excuse, and shimmies his way in. I realize his body might look good in clothes, but he's kind of gross. Like he was obese and then lost a ton of weight. But is it supposed to be wiry and skinny? I don't know. He was naked and I didn't want to accidentally look down, so I ignored it and went to bed freaked out. I don't think I slept much. I just watched the bottom of my door for the outline of his toes. That morning, the plates were clean. I think he licked them clean. They smelt funny and, despite being speck-free, still had a gloss of something gross on them. I tell Betty about it and she's freaked out and pissed. She didn't like the guy in the first place, and he's walking around naked at night being creepy. Not cool. She confronts Veronica about it, who is also weirded out. But I don't think anything ever came of it. If she did ask him about that night, he just nodded and stammered his way out of the problem. So I don't have to deal with him for another couple weeks. Veronica starts going and hanging out with him instead. Awesome. But instead of going to his place, I guess all they do is drive around in his crappy car. They bang and everything in this tiny old little Honda Civic, which she said was disgusting, like he lived out of it. When he prodded, he insisted that he lived with an aunt who did not approve of him having girls over. She was just about done with him and his weirdness, finally. This all started in mid-May, and it is now early August, and the final straw for Veronica is, of course, about food. He liked to gorge himself on candy bars, apparently. His car was loaded with wrappers of every imaginable sort. So we are barbecuing on the deck. The meal for the evening: steak, baked potatoes, and salad. The steaks have been marinating in Dr. Pepper for 3 days, because hell yeah, adulthood. Dimitri gets one look, or smell rather, of raw beef soaking in soda-based marinade, and he literally starts drooling on himself. He's eyeballing them like someone showed him the proof of God. Even little moans are coming through as he breathes through his vocal cords because the guy can't control himself. Veronica pulls him aside and gives him a decent scolding in the hallway. He comes back, looking like he's trying to compose himself with his stiff body, and I swear the guy is even blushing through his oompa-loompa-looking skin. He fixes it by going to every single person present — there's about 6 of us at the little gathering — and saying, "Sorry, man!" And it sounded like a dog trying to sing and talk at the same time. Just hoarse, off-key and guttural, followed up by a firm slap on the back or the arm, regardless of whether you're a boy or not. The dumb bastard was losing it. So we're sitting at the dinner table and supper is delicious. Steak, baked potatoes, corn, great salad. Dimitri demolishes his steak but has trouble with his vegetables. I'm watching him carefully while the girls gab, and he would stuff salad into his mouth and just chew and chew and chew and chew and chew. Go to scratch his mouth, take a handful of mangled greens and dressing and shove it in his pocket. The bone in the steak was picked clean, and the potatoes were just forked into oblivion. I guess I wasn't the only one that noticed this, and Betty informed me that Veronica had texted her and said that she was done with Dimitri and she had to end it tonight. Everyone goes home. They walk down to the parking lot where his car is out back. She looks bummed and nervous and sad. He's still smiling and nodding his head and being weird. Me and Betty rejoice for a moment and start watching TV. A few minutes go by and we hear shouting and then screaming. Veronica is screaming in the parking lot, the sound coming up through the balcony. We rush down as fast as we could. Screw elevators. We get there and Dimitri is sitting in the driver's seat freaking out. He's just thrashing and roaring and tearing things to pieces from his driver's seat. Veronica is standing away from the car in the parking lot, crying and holding her arm. We grab her and pull her in and Dimitri sees me and just stops moving completely and goes dead cold quiet. His eyes lock on mine, his face twists up in a snarl and he grips the steering wheel. His face is twitching up into a snarl so hard it looks impossible how hard and far his face contorts. Suddenly he just stops, turns on his car, drives away just like that, putters away unconcerned. We called the police, file a report, humor a restraining order, but decide it's not worth the trouble. Pretty sure he's never going to come back. August goes by without a hitch. Dimitri is old but creepy news. Then Veronica comes home from work upset. Dimitri was at her store again that evening. He just walked around the building, not even peering in windows. He would stand on the other side of cars by the drive-through window, but would always bolt once they were done with their orders. Then one night, things peaked bad. One night, me and Betty are home. Veronica was out and was on her way back to our place. She calls up Betty, crying and whispering.
Betty, I think Dimitri is outside our apartment. It's a different car. I was walking down the road to here and this old red car sped by and almost hit me. Now it's parked right outside the front door. The engine is running. I can't see.
She starts screaming in pain. We rush down. I take a knife with me from the kitchen. We aren't even wearing shoes. We get out the front door and there's a car sitting idle, open and empty. We rush through the parking lot and to the road. We see a discarded shoe and pick it up. We call Veronica's name, no answer. We ran into the park on the opposite side of the road and called her name again. Out of the corner of my eye, I see him. It haunts me, his face sticking through a dense holly hedge, no shoulders in sight. He's still grinning his plastic smile and bobbing his head. His eyes are like painted glass now. I run around the holly hedge at the center of the park and he's there, but it's messed up. He's all twisted looking. He's naked, but his shoulders have sloped almost into his torso and his neck is at least 3 feet long. His orange skin is cracked and splitting into what looks like moist-looking pink new skin. He's gyrating his hips and scrambling to pull off Veronica's pants with one gangly arm. She's pinned face down to the ground with the other, her mouth full of dirt and grass. I just scream and run at him and throw myself at whatever Dimitri is. He gets knocked into the hedge and tangled up. I grab her and pull her up and throw her into a run. Dimitri is laying in the hedge and coming back to his feet. He moves so slow and ponderously, the whole time moaning this long noise that sounds like it echoes from him. He stands back up and falls down to being on all fours. He walks like this, his legs completely straight so his back end is higher than his front end, but his head on that screwed up neck is curled looking up at me. Eyes glazed over and just started stalking towards me like a cougar, hunting and prowling. That dull, horrible sound just keeps echoing out, never stopping to breathe. I'm backing up. I grab the knife from my pocket in a frenzy and cut my hand. Jesus, I can't sleep anymore from this. I looked everywhere in this hellhole city for an apartment with no windows for this. My hand is dripping blood, gripping the knife. Dimitri stops and just stares at my dripping hand. His face contorts and melts down into the saddest, most desperate, most grieving expression I've ever seen. The eyes melt too, dripping down at the corners to raw sadness. He lashes out, snatches my hand with his and starts desperately and pleadingly licking the blood from my fist. The whole while, its long, thick tongue laps at my hand. It's just looking at me, grieving for my bloodshed. I was just frozen in fear, our eyes locked. I heard sirens coming. Dimitri stopped and stood up straight and started walking across the park in the nude. I laid out on the ground, holding the knife, shaking. I think I passed out. I don't remember the police or an ambulance. My next thought was a blanket around my shoulders and stitches in my hand. I don't speak to Betty or Veronica anymore. I hate this city. I see them everywhere now. People with Dimitri's eyes and his smiles. The derelicts who wander. I haven't seen the night sky all month. I only come out during the day. I can't bear the thought of seeing his face poke through the hedge at me again. I know he's after me. I miss Betty. I don't know what they saw or how much, but they can't bear the sight of me anymore. All I have left is my obsession, which I fight with. Dimitri ruined my life, whatever he is. But I can't move on. I can't stand the thought of something out there, knowing and savoring my blood.
Could you please describe his voice? It's kind of hard for me to imagine things the other way. Anyway, Dimitri reminds me of one of my friends with a different name, though. Due to the creepiness. Maybe excluding the near-ending parts. I'm sure that my friend won't try to walk the park naked while licking blood.
OP here. It generally spoke in a monotone voice that was trying to sound enthused, but all of the time. Every day and every topic was the best ever. If Dimitri was thrown off or forced to talk about something he didn't know, he would start stuttering. His syllables would modulate in pitch really hard. I don't know, I think it practiced talking. It repeated phrases that it was comfortable with a lot.
So, how old was he supposedly and how old did he look? How has Betty acted towards you since you bailed? Maybe calls or texts you a lot?
It could pass for 23 to 26 years of age. Betty and I haven't spoken. The night everything happened, she came to me in the hospital and we couldn't really talk. They kept me under observation for about 24 hours because I was delirious. When I got back to my apartment, my landlord had a box of my stuff from her place. They knew each other from when she was over a lot. This is the letter she attached. This letter is the last I heard from her.
Dear Anon, we can't do this. We can't keep reminding each other of this shit. Everything is fucked up. This is all fucked up. It's not fair. You will always be a scar. You will always bring to mind that thing. I'm sorry, but we need to start over. But far, far apart. I love you. But stay away. If we didn't happen, then that night didn't happen. Be happy. I'm sorry. Sincerely, Betty.
Ice cold, bruh. That is her handwriting, right? Can't help but think of this as invasion of the body snatchers shit. Was he an older-looking pick related?
I can't blame her, but it still hurts a lot. And yeah, I'm pretty sure it's hers. Lots of the same characteristics, but just like she was in a rush. Probably wrote it in the parking lot of my building. It was uncannily similar to an older pick related, but it would have its eyes bugged out, smiling like it was its birthday. It looked like it would fit in better downtown around shitty clubs. You wouldn't even spot it there, but it always looked a little silly walking around. I know it worked at the Highfield apartment complex doing their maintenance. Don't know if it still does that. Stay out of Burnside at night, dude. But that's a given regardless.
Buy a gun, carry it, carry a knife, and carry an ASP baton. You have to fight. You can't hide forever. I used to think I could hide, but I realized it's just impossible to hide forever. Prepare yourself for action and get back out into the world. Good luck.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.
There's also a Rumble archive as a backup.